And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you who don't know me, I am Anthony Tsavelis. I am a Google Cloud certified trainer, and you have tuned in to Bowtie Certified, where we talk about everyday tech people and their journey through their careers and how they got to where they are using certification and higher learning. And so today I am proud to bring on Derek Morgan. Derek, hello.
Hello, everybody, live studio audience and whatnot.
So a little backstory. I met Derek indirectly through a company that we both used to work for. And we've been keeping in touch ever since. He was doing certification training like I currently do, and now he's into industrial automation. And so Derek, I wanted to give you the floor and tell us, actually start us off. What were you doing before diving into the tech industry? And what made you decide that this was your path?
Okay, so I've always kind of dabbled in tech. I've always been the guy, tinkering with the computer. And I started video editing, things like that when I was in high school. And that really got me into computers in general. Otherwise, I kind of like to be outside in high school. I didn't really spend a lot of time really digging in.
Mm-hmm.
But as things continued and as I moved on from high school, I realized that tech was fairly important. I started in the home theater realm, working for like your Best Buys, your Geek Squads, everything else. I did home theater installs and all of this, and really liked the idea that I can get my hands on things.
Nice.
So I wasn't big on computers because, again, everything is so abstract. With home theater, it's like, okay, we've got sound, everything's good, or this is coming out of the right speaker, or that was a loud pop, we're in trouble.
We're all good.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that. And on from there, I kept moving through the retail circuit, talking Best Buy, Circuit City, Sears, Staples, you name it. I like talking to people. Yeah, I kind of did the whole deal. So I put in my time. We'll put it that way. So I realized that as one of those recessions, I think it was 2007, started coming through, home theater was kind of taking a big dump. Nobody really wanted to pay at the time $5,000 for a plasma TV. Obviously, things have come down since, but nobody wanted to pay that money. So I started moving into computers and kind of hanging out with those people.
What did you go to school for? Just a little background.
So I went to school for marketing. Actually, I started in marketing. I really enjoyed that and kind of started down the retail path, and then school just kind of took a back seat. I was moving up pretty quickly through the ranks. Kind of everything was kind of easy. Working in retail at the time, Best Buy was at its peak. I mean, it was huge. Managers were floor managers were getting six figures. It was looking pretty good.
Manager here.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, it was beautiful at the time.
Yeah.
Then I realized just that things were going south. And of course, I ended up after I got an associate's degree, all of that, ended up at Circuit City as their lead technician, did a lot of virus removals, all of that type of stuff. And that's when Circuit City got shut down. So I bought all of their tech bench, everything, opened a store, was paying literally $480 a month for my store. It was great. It's this tiny little room in my small town, and just went to work. And for 5 years, I fixed computers, did networking, did all of that. And eventually small town kind of hit. I got really kind of sick of the small town world. And I realized I needed to get out somehow. Things were getting tough. I was at that annoying phase where I was too big to handle it myself, but too small to hire people.
Right.
And I didn't see any end to this in sight. So it was time to get back and hit the pavement. And so I joined Western Governors University.
Okay.
They accepted my my associate's degree, transferred in a ton of credits, and accepted my IT background and allowed me to start there. And from there, I picked up obviously the simple certs for me at the time, like A+, the CompTIA stuff,
Okay.
which are still great starts if you're trying to get into tech. But,
Absolutely.
you know, at that time, that was a fairly simple one. But then it moved on into my Cisco certification, which
Wow.
I could say the CCNA was probably my first real entry into real tech. You know,
Yeah.
not computer repair, not tinkering into like the enterprise side of things.
And so for those of you listening in and you're not quite sure what the CCNA is, it is a Cisco certification specifically for networking, and it is a very, very difficult exam. It's not something you can just pick up and go. So,
Right.
Yeah, kudos to you for getting that.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, the CCNA, it was challenging, especially coming from your, like, last thing I touched before that was a Linksys router. You know, so once we start getting this like giant stack of blinking lights,
Yeah,
it made
exactly.
sense. And while I was doing that, I also did several of the older Microsoft exams, Active Directory, that type of stuff, and really started digging into enterprise. So after that, and again, Western Governors University paid for these exams. Basically, it came with my tuition.
Nice.
So I went through as fast as possible on those, got those certifications, and finally, after another couple of little jobs, I got pulled into a hosting company in Atlanta.
Okay.
And at the time, the cloud was still an idea. I mean, S3 might have just come out. I think EC2 is just starting to creep around the corner.
Right.
AWS still had a lot of problems, and everybody was trying to pull off their own cloud, including the company I worked for. And so I actually took part in some of that cloud building. I believe we were using, I think we were using KVM. We might have been using OpenStack. I can't remember at the time, but it wasn't pretty. We'll put it that way. So I
Well,
got introduced to it.
is not a simple thing, right? There's so
No,
many moving
absolutely not.
parts.
Yeah, and especially when you add money and contracts and everything else to
And
it,
egos.
you know. Yeah. It I remember there was a time where some people were complaining that their backups weren't working,
Yes.
and some behind the scenes conversation basically alluded to that's because we haven't upgraded the backup to support the capacity we need to support. Not good. Not good. They eventually worked their way out of it, but it was not a fun month taking those calls.
Right.
But, you know, that's where I realized in that hosting company the benefit of getting your foundations right.
Mhm.
We had one person call in and they're like, okay, here's a list of IP addresses and subnets. I need you to block all of these in the firewall. So it was basically data entry. So we gave it to a tier 1 person.
Right.
That tier 1 person just popped them on in. Well, customer calls up, literally crying. Website's been down for hours, can't access it. What's going on? So I grabbed that list of IP addresses and realized that there were some /8s on that list. Now, for those of you that don't know, a /8 is about 2/3 or 3/4 of the internet blocked. So yeah. So those /8s, which that tier 1 person put in, ended up blocking most of the internet to this person's site.
Ouch.
So when I realized that, I started a campaign to start teaching these tier 1s how to subnet.
Mm.
And that's when I realized that how important that was and how much I liked doing it.
That's awesome. So, was this hosting job your first like real production grade tech job?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I was tier 2 most of the time. I picked up a couple tier 3 calls. Tier 2 basically handled anything from $5,000 a month to $10,000 a month from
Right.
those clients. And then I would deal with the occasional DDoS. I've seen entire data centers go down. Those were fun days. All sorts of really interesting stuff. I was on the Windows side at the time and kind of realized I didn't really want to be on the Windows side. very long, but that hadn't happened yet. So while I was there, got an offer from a friend of a friend up in Boston, moved up there working for venture capital firms, providing IT services for them. And the conferencing was their number one thing.
Wow.
If they had a glitch during a pitch, a
Yeah.
pitch glitch, as I'm calling it now from now on, they would freak out. I'm talking like my phone, watch, you name it, was blowing up. I didn't even have a smartwatch at the time. They somehow tapped in. It was insane. If the video conferencing didn't work, we had to take care of it. So we had MPLS set up, we had failover, we had everything. Zoom had just come out. So at the time, we're dealing with like $200,000 conferencing systems by Cisco. All of this, learned a few lessons there, pretty hard ones.
So this job was just happenstance. Your friend called you up and said, "Hey, I got a gig for you," and you're like, "You know what? I really need the money. I need the experience. Let's do it."
Yep. Just kind of out of it. It made sense for me. Enterprise was fun, but I liked interfacing with clients more intimately. I like being able to, be on call for someone I know versus just accepting random calls. It was nice kind of being able to build a relationship with these companies that I was working with.
So your strategy was more, you wanted to be a part of the whoever is consuming the product. You wanted to be a part of their actual support. They can reach out to you. It's like kind of like a friend in the middle of the night who needs, just to be talked through, some difficult times, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, they had some difficult times, usually involving Exchange servers, to be honest.
So stepping back for just a second, Derek, when you said that you had from your small town and you had opened up your own company and you went back to school, what drove you to go back to school instead of just doing it on your own?
The certifications primarily. And at the time, again, cloud wasn't big. Online education wasn't huge yet. We're still, broadband was there, but most people have had 5 megs tops. I mean, the cloud and the internet as we know it now and content delivery just wasn't there. So people still expected that degree at the time, but the fact is this degree also included several certifications. So it's kind of 2 birds in 1 stone and allowed me to work on the things I needed to work on without being distracted too much.
So around what year was this?
2009, I think, 10, something like that, give or take.
So when I got into tech, I got into tech at around 2004. And back then there was absolutely nothing. I was like scouring the torrent sites looking for videos, but all I could find was ebooks. And the ebooks back then, they were meant for computer science students.
Yeah.
I had no idea what the hell they were talking about. I mean, now I do, but I mean, being a fashion designer back then, I was just like, I can't do this.
Yep.
So I feel your pain, trying to get the education that you needed to move forward. There's actually no other choice but to move to a schooling type situation.
Yeah, I had Microsoft books with CDs, and the CDs had the labs and videos and things like that on them. They were not ideal, to say the least. They were not particularly engaging.
Got it. So moving back to conferencing, video conferencing.
Yep. After a while, I think about 2 years or so, I decided that the Microsoft world was just not for me. I was over it. I was done with it. I was tired of every piece of software I needed having to be paid for. I wanted to get into, I loved the power of being able to jump into a Linux system and deploy this entire stack of, basically your own hosting company if you want, very
Right.
easily without the unbelievable licensing nightmares that is Microsoft. So I jumped in, and that's when I joined Linux Academy way back when it was still ramping up. I actually joined them and got my Red Hat certification. The Linux concepts took a little bit to get going, but for the most part, I was familiar with them. I had tinkered with it before,
Mhm.
and with lots and lots of studying and creating my own labs. Actually, I would create several of my own labs. I would go through them once or twice a day. I would time myself. I would change them up. I would time myself again and make sure that I got it down. I went above and beyond the Linux Academy course. I read the books and really started to get into Linux. And I can't describe how powerful it makes you feel when you really get like Linux down.
Yeah.
When you start to move through Linux, you just have this you feel like you have a superpower.
Yeah.
And
Getting on that command line is just like you feel like you're, I don't want to say the word, but
yeah,
you feel like God.
yeah, I get it. Yeah, and then learning
Oh,
AWS on top of that was enormous. And I will say I am super happy that I started with Linux before I got into AWS,
hmm
because there's a lot of AWS concepts that just basically expect you to know how to run Nginx or Linux or manage some. I mean, just upgrading your volumes on your EC2 instances is more complicated than just clicking and going. Sometimes you have to log into the system and expand that partition.
yes.
So that Red Hat background really, really helped with that. But then I moved into AWS, and of course, AWS leads into Terraform because we've got a pseudo power. Agreed. Um, that leads into Terraform, and I started building out everything in Terraform. Everything I did it in Terraform. And that's when I got the reach out from Christoph at Linux Academy. We started discussing, and I started writing networking guides, which follow into my
Nice.
belief that everyone needs to have that foundation. Started writing those. Then he said, hey, would you consider recording some stuff for us? And so I did that. And about a month later, they were still running a little slowly. About a month later, I was hired. So
I
I
mean,
moved to California just for the heck of it because I needed some sun while I was recording.
nice.
And Linux Academy was another 2 years. And after that, of course, my courses, you can still kind of find them. I think you can find them on some torrent sites or something. But other than that, most of them have been covered. And so I got tired of recording, wanted to get my hands dirty again. And where to get your hands dirtier than an actual factory floor? Long story short, girlfriend at the time met someone in a bar in San Francisco who introduced me to this person in Chicago who brought me onto the company, which we
Okay.
started together. Yep.
Very nice. Very
Yep.
nice. So there's a couple things that I wanted to touch on that you had brought up. First of all, the fundamentals.
Mhm.
For those of you who are watching and you have neglected the fundamentals, I highly recommend that you go back and get the necessary knowledge that you need to learn those fundamentals, because it will help you drastically. I found that creating my current course, doing those fundamentals, you neglect them, and when you revisit them and you really go deep in them, everything else it just clicks. It just makes sense, and it will allow you to do more because of it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. No, it's unreal. I mean, just doing like the conferencing that I mentioned, there would be times where we would have network issues, and being able to break out Wireshark and dig in and find out that the QoS settings on the switch were wrong, which was
Okay.
causing it to prioritize other traffic above the conferencing system. You know, that's something that you don't always know to look for, and being able to dig into the protocol stack and actually figure out what the hell is going on for real.
Yeah.
It really, really helps. And this, of course, in industrial automation now, everything is protocol level. We've got protocols flying out the wazoo. We've got these logic controllers kicking out Ethernet IP, which is what it's called. It's not actually your TCP IP. It's called Ethernet IP, and Rockwell Automation basically does it. They invented it. It's all these extra protocols that we now have to go through, and being able to diagnose issues at every level and every layer of the stack is really, really important. So we could have Ethernet IP coming into our system. We might be using like PyCom, which is a Python library that reads this. And then that will convert it to MQTT, which will then carry it over a REST endpoint to our, through an API gateway that goes into our database, which is then analyzed by another platform. We've got stuff that connects all over the place, and being able to figure all of this out with the abstraction of Kubernetes, Rancher, and everything else on top of that, it can turn into quite the headache. But those fundamentals come into play.
Yeah. So I was going to say, putting all the tech aside, I mean, how did these certifications allow you to be better at your job? And are the certifications what steered you to where you are today?
Certifications absolutely steered me here. I mean, everything kind of built on each other. Like the Cisco certification, yes, I still use that. The AWS certification, absolutely. Some of the other certifications, Microsoft, haven't touched Microsoft in a while, but learning to dive through the documentation to support your education, learning to research these things, learning to move through all of the services necessary really helps to build a foundation of being able to teach yourself these things, because documentation is not always great. In fact, it's more times than not awful. And yeah, absolutely. And being able to get through it.
I'm like one of the very few, and I'll freely admit it, I actually enjoy going through documentation, because I find all the nitty gritty that no one will actually tell you, or nobody really bothers to look into. And you find that little tidbit and you're like, oh, that right there, that's what I wanted.
So I learned, speaking of that, I actually learned there is a really fun Easter egg for Python.
Okay.
And for those of you that know or don't know, Python does not use braces. That's kind of their thing. They use white space instead. So if you go and you actually look into the API, you'll see that there's actually a braces import. So if you do from future import braces and then hit go, it will say, 1 second, from future import braces. I don't want to give you the exact, there it is. Syntax error, not a chance.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So give that a shot in Python if you want. The future, of course, is something you use. You do from future import things to allow Python 2 to interact with Python 3 and things like that. But yeah, that's a fun little Easter egg that you can only find in the manual.
Interesting. And so did you happen to find that in the manual, or did you just stumble upon it and then you went to the manual?
I stumbled upon it and then went and looked, and there are just all sorts of fun Easter eggs in their documentation. I mean, I find that it's unbelievable going, you can watch tutorials all day long. You can bury yourself in these things, and it's called tutorial hell if you get too deep. If you don't do a little bit of your own research on top of it.
Right.
You basically learn these opinionated ways to do things when there might be a better way. Just this person, you get fatigued trying to reinvent yourself to save 20 characters a time.
Yeah.
some people are just like, no, I want to use a Lambda expression in Python, or no, I prefer a for loop because I know it. I can write it fast. I can read it. And this code is not being measured on number of lines.
Right.
Some people just prefer to do it the way they've always done it. So by following other people's lead, it's a great start, but it's good to be able to look up your own information whenever you need to. By going through the API in Python, you'll find all sorts of information. You'll find methods that you just never thought of that solve problems that you might be doing some roundabout like solution to, when there's a method that just does it for you.
Nice. Very nice. Well, I'm an infrastructure guy, and digging into, I actually, when I started going through the certifications for AWS, I actually read the whole EC2 manual.
Oh yeah, that thing's a
pages.
Beast. It is a beast.
So for those of you who think that you've had some dry reading, this takes the cake.
Yeah, well, for your next one, start hopping into the BGP stuff and the direct connect guide.
I think Adrian has already covered that.
Yeah, he has. I did too. That was the worst course in the world to have to do. So I'm going to let him do it from now on. I never want to touch AWS Advanced Networking again if I can avoid it. I'm going to keep this MQTT stuff going, keep the TLS search used, and just kind of try to avoid direct connecting things as long as I can.
But for a quick plug for those who are looking for any Google Cloud training and you're just getting into it, please go to my site, training.antonyt.com. And my course is still in pre-release, but a majority of the course is complete. And so go ahead, go and check it out. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
We should do a co-project.
That might be interesting.
Yeah, I'll get the data to the cloud, and you show people how to manage it in Google. I've already got a full stack ready to go, a simulated PLCs, simulated manufacturing stuff, everything.
Well, we have some people in the audience who would like something else from you, Derek.
Oh, Terraform course. Surprise.
Surprise.
Oh, one day we're going to see how things go over the next few weeks. But I can tell you that although I'm not actively working on it, I have been working on a very exciting Terraform rollout deployment.
Okay.
That covers Kubernetes, it covers Rancher, it covers Helm, it covers AWS. We've got things from DNS, we've got SSL or TLS certs, we've got pretty much everything. I've got to decide how deep down this rabbit hole I'd want to go in front of a mic.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have a really engaging potential project that I might be releasing if I can get the time. So people keep bugging me. I'm sure it'll eventually happen.
So, teeing that up, I actually wanted to ask you, what does the future look like for Derek?
It's up in the air, working on Automation Institute right now. That's this little guy. His name is Otto.
Nice.
Otto the robot. So we're working on Automation Institute now to teach all of this stuff that we are building. Now, Terraform is definitely something I'd like to include, but it's not the identity of the school. Although It says automation, it's more for industrial automation and home automation and IoT type stuff. So we'll be focusing on sensors, Node-RED, building, programming, pretty much everything that we can think of that ties into that. We're actually going to cover quality and manufacturing type stuff. We'll be covering project management and lean manufacturing, as much as we can cram into this thing. But we're going to start with an IoT course that I think is going to be a lot of fun for a lot of people.
So just to give the audience an understanding, the difference between home automation and industrial automation.
Mostly, I'd say the likelihood that somebody dies is probably the biggest difference. So,
okay.
Yeah, manufacturing.
Way to take it to a dark place, Derek.
You screw up the robot, it rips somebody's arm off, plain and simple. So I'll be mostly handling the IoT side. I'll be handling the cloud and how to get the data from the machines. And then my partner will actually handle logic controllers and robots and things actually tying to manufacturing processes. So he worked at Amazon for a really long time doing like conveyance systems, things like that. So the
Got it.
conveyors running through these warehouses, he would make sure those are running at the right speed, stopping and when they needed to stop and all of that. And basically
Okay.
getting your packages to you as fast as possible.
Got it. And
Yep.
I guess things like robot arms in car factories kind of
Yep.
deal.
Absolutely.
Got
Absolutely.
it. It's not about, hey Google, turn on the lights.
We'll probably cover that. Actually, I'll be doing, we're going to try to really focus this on projects, a lot of projects, as
Got
many as humanly possible. It's going to be an absolute blast. So even if this thing doesn't take off, we at least got to have a ton of fun.
it. Okay. So with regards to the learnings along the way, along your journey, other than the certifications, what other learnings helped you to get to where you are today?
I mean, just diving in, if you have an idea, try to build it. Try to build a portfolio of anything you can imagine. Having hands-on training is way more important than anything. You got to back up that piece of paper. That piece of paper will get you through the resume process. It will teach you to learn. It will help you to structure the things you need to know. But at the end of the day, you need to put that into action. So as many projects as possible is really what I've done. Just if I go and I learn something in AWS, for instance, while training for the CSA Pro, which I've had to put on hold because I'm building other things. But the CSA Pro, for instance, I took a Jupyter notebook, which is basically a notebook with Python cells in it that allows you to run Python code.
Okay.
And I did every exercise and lab in Python.
Nice.
So I was still learning the AWS that I needed to learn, but being able to go through and see these error messages at a lower level than just a console, a little toast pop-up that pops up and says, hey, something went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It literally outputs code that just tells you exactly what you did wrong. You get a stack trace, everything else. And you really learn things at a deeper level if you really dive in. And the same goes for the infrastructure with Terraform. Building it with Terraform gives you a much better picture of how things work together than just bouncing between 50 screens with 30 tabs open, trying to build something in the in the console. And not to mention, if you're using Google Chrome, it might save you about 30 gigs of RAM also.
Now that is true.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with regards to getting hands-on, I mean, how did you apply this? Did you work after hours working on these projects? Did you every chance you got during the lunch hour, whatever the case may be, how did you get the hands-on experience that gave you these new learnings that helped you get to where you are now?
Sometimes doing things the hard way is the best way. And I think one of the hardest parts about being in the IT world is your mind's wired to do things as efficiently as possible. And you do a trade-off when you're setting up automation. If it's something you're only going to do once, it's like, why spend the time to code this out or to script it out and write a ton of YAML files to solve a problem that you could just manually do in 30 minutes? And
Right.
sometimes accepting the fact that doing it the fun way, but the hard way, is the way that you can do it, because even though it may not benefit you for that particular task, when you do get a task where it does benefit you, you're ready to go. So talking yourself into doing things the hard way, the way that you don't know, the uncomfortable way, is one of the largest things I've had to teach myself to do. And then as far as learning outside of that, I mean, I started, one of my first scripting languages was PowerShell. I had PowerShell in a month of lunches. So yes, I did do every lunch break, I would do some PowerShell, but I'd always relate it back to what I was doing. I would take that lesson and try to relate it to something at work. So if somebody did come up and look over my shoulder, hey, what the hell are you doing? You can't study on company time. I'm like, I'm building something for the company.
Mm.
So always, that's one of the best ways to do things. Find something you like and see if you can talk your boss into letting you benefit the company using that different process. And just be prepared to explain, even if they say, look, I don't see the value in that. Be able to promote that value and say, look, you're not going to see a lot of value out of this particular project, but over time, I'm going to get better and it's going to make your company better and your paycheck better. The whole what's in it for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I remember working during lunch hours on another cloud product, and and it was totally relatable back to what I was doing, and I wanted to see if I could do it. Can I build this? Can it benefit the company? And when I started building things and I started showing my boss, he's like, yeah, let's show this to the team. And that's when, things start to build. They start to really gain momentum and growth. And it not only gives you that, the proud papa moment where I created something, but it gives you that learning that you took so much time out to do, and you got something, right? And you can take that with you.
Absolutely. And of course, throw it in GitHub or GitLab, show it to the world. It's an unbelievable resume piece. And, there are projects I've built that I would literally, after I build it, I would build it for the company I was working for. And then I'd cross my fingers that they didn't need it so that I could show it publicly. Because a lot of times, this stuff was proprietary. But if they ended up not using it, I got to use it for a future project. And I might start building my own project doing that. And it was, it's really cool to have that portfolio of stuff around, even if you never use it. I've got a front end for Terraform I built in Flask and Bootstrap, actually. I didn't even know React at the time. So I built this front end for Terraform before HashiCorp's their front end product came out. And HashiCorp comes out with their front end and I'm like, all right, well, this is useless. And then a few months later, it turns out that turned out to be version 1 of one of our IoT products. Wow. I went in, I revitalized some things, changed some endpoints, but for the most part, it became Gen 1 and basically got me the job that I'm doing today. That's amazing.
That's amazing. All through just building stuff that you love to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was hard at times, but it definitely paid off.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So if you could offer one piece of advice to others who are striving to either get into the industry and land a role in tech, or if they're already in tech, what would it be?
Don't skip the fundamentals. I mean, 100%. If I was interviewing someone today, I wouldn't hit my first question wouldn't be, okay, so you're a front end developer. Let's talk about, how deep you are in React. Let's talk about all of this stuff. Or you're a back end developer. How would you deploy this Nginx server? It wouldn't be that. It would be, all right, you have 20 hosts. What subnet should you use? Or something like that, and if you act like that doesn't matter to you, you're out the door. See you later. I understand not everybody's going to know that off the top of their head, and a lot of people don't use it a lot. Act like it's important and act like you're ready to treat it like it's important. Don't do that's not my job. That's for lower people who it's like, no, you should know that. If you are an engineer, you need to know those fundamentals. The word engineer carries a lot of weight to it, and you need to show that you respect that weight.
Wow. I've never heard anyone put it that way, but felt it.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, doing an engineer's job is not easy, and for those of us who haven't gone to school for computer engineering or electrical engineering, and we don't got the ring, um, it does carry a lot of weight, when you say that you're an engineer. So, a lot of times you got to act it, and
Absolutely.
yeah, thanks for bringing that up and pointing it out.
Sure.
So I'm going to open up the floor to any questions from the audience. If anyone has any questions for Derek or for me, whether it's with regards to Derek's past or his current company or certifications or learning, feel free to put it in the comments, and we'll get it answered. So Derek, with regards to the online courses that you were talking about releasing, when are we expected to see some of that?
I'm gonna fire up the microphone soon. I don't know. Honestly, the absolute hardest part of this whole
Hello,
thing.
is this thing on?
Yeah, exactly. The hardest part of everything, I've got the project pretty much done. I've got this awesome like Kubernetes, Rancher, MQTT, like this massive stack going. We're going to go into Postgres. We're going to go into InfluxDB. We're going to go into Grafana, all of this stuff. But learning how to display the concepts without boring you to tears is just a nightmare. Getting the graphics together that illustrate these concepts properly, all of this collateral is what's difficult. I can teach this stuff all day long with just tutorials and projects, but actually nailing these concepts down is where it gets hard, and displaying them. So I'm working on getting that done. If things continue to take a little bit of time, I'll probably start releasing some really fun projects coming up soon.
Nice. And are these projects only going to be released with your course, or are you going to make it publicly available on GitHub?
Oh, publicly available. Everything will be wide open. Obviously, the course will structure things better. You'll have some hands-on games, learning activities, things like that you'll do. So that will be the benefit for signing up, depending on whether I do it for free or not. We'll see. But that will be a lot of the benefit there. But as far as just deploying things, yeah, absolutely. I want to release as much to the world as possible. I want people to enjoy it. I love doing what I do. So hopefully we'll have some really fun stuff coming down the pipe soon.
That's awesome. Well, just to let you know, a lot of us don't have any robotics in our household, so I don't know how you're gonna pull it off, but
yep, there are simulators. There are language simulators. We've got a lot of really cool stuff, and then there are very inexpensive kits that you can buy for some of this stuff.
That's cool.
We're also thinking of buying a lot of Raspberry Pis and pre-installing some of the software that we're looking at to simulate some of these devices. And we will sell them pretty much at cost just to get people started quickly.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
That sounds really fun. Really fun.
Absolutely. We just want to spread the love and really, get the world automated.
I love automation.
Yeah.
I use it all the time. When I first started doing it, my wife was she was like, "Do we really need all this stuff?" Well, yeah, because
oh yeah, that question.
it's so much easier. I mean, I don't have to think about turning on my light, my outside light in the evening. It just does it, right?
Right.
I don't have to think about turning on my coffee machine in the morning because it just does it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually looking for a new place to live now that will give me a little more access to the fuse box. I'm in an apartment now that probably wouldn't go over well, but looking for something that's going to let me really dive in and do some pretty cool stuff. I'm pretty excited.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So with regards to the type of automation that you're doing, are you looking at doing anything really, for lack of better words, outlandish that's going to be that we should be looking for?
There's going to be a lot coming down the pipe. Right now the course itself is going to be a simulated car factory, or probably a simulated wire factory. That's kind of what I've been working on for a while now. So I've got a lot of that data sitting around. But some of the projects that we're looking at are going to get pretty fun. We've thought about stuff like, containers that take the weight of the food that's in them and telling you how many calories you grab per handful, that type of thing. We've thought about some very interesting little projects that, for the most part, are completely useless, but an absolute blast to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh, I know. The fun one I was thinking of would be how you got the putt greens that you have in your office, especially now that you're stuck in, everybody's stuck at home with COVID. I was thinking of maybe doing some sort of automated windmill or something for that. Give you a putt feel. You could throw in some, you could throw in all sorts of sensors. You could have speed sensors that basically try to block the ball, which would be really fun. We could do a lot of really cool stuff that we're looking at. So if anybody has any project ideas, feel free to shoot it my way and we'll definitely try to build it.
And so how can people get a hold of you?
Hop into Tech Study Slack, obviously. That's techstudyslack.com. Join that Slack. I'm pretty much there as much as I can be. LinkedIn, of course, very easy to get a hold of me. That's DEREKM1215 on LinkedIn. And then if you're really having fun, hop on Google and send me a message via RFC 2549. If you don't know what that is, look it up.
I'm not sure if people are going to go down that route and just,
IP over avian carriers with QoS. Speaking of documentation, that was an April Fool's Day joke a while back so yeah, go ahead and just look that up. IP over avian carriers with QoS.
Awesome. So we have a question. What skills do people gain taking your future industrial home automation course?
The skills you're going to gain is, so we're actually starting with the PLC level, PLC simulator, which that's a logic controller that controls machines. It contacts sensors, all of that. And we're going to pull data from that. You're going to get the full path. This is going to come from the PLC. It's going to come into Node-RED, all of this running on Kubernetes. So you're going to learn how to deploy your own Kubernetes stack. Now it's going to start pretty high level. We're going to deep dive after this course is finished. I'll start deep diving into the sections, but it's going to start out with a Kubernetes stack run on Rancher. You're going to be able to pull that data. You're going to be able to run it and learn MQTT. You're going to be able to take that MQTT data and you're going to be able to stream it to InfluxDB, which is a time series database, which will then be able to be viewed in Grafana. So we'll cover all of that. You'll learn some basic JavaScript along the way. And then we will run it. We'll run the same data through a API gateway. So you're going to learn some API stuff, some REST verbs, things like that. And then we're going to run that into a Postgres database. Once it's in the Postgres database, you're going to learn some basic SQL, how to deploy Postgres in a container, all of that. We'll then tie it in with a program called Metabase, which will allow you to analyze all of this data and get some ideas on how those charts and everything work. Then we're going to take all of that, pipe it into AWS, and we're going to learn AWS IoT. We're going to learn probably some DynamoDB. We'll play with TimeStream. We'll play with the rules engine. We'll play with shadow devices and all of that.
Wow.
Yeah, I know I'm missing some things, but there's definitely a lot to learn in this course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a big one.
For that whole list, I won't lie. Just out of curiosity though, Derek, how many are there a lot of people in the industrial automation industry that are technical, like the people that are creating or repairing these automation tools and robotics, if you will?
You get it all over the map. And the thing is a lot of these people, the industry isn't the same as the normal tech industry we're used to. They aren't on Twitter all the time advertising what they know, But like you'll be talking to someone sitting there turning a wrench and he knows C sharp, or he knows C++, no problem. Or, you've got another woman carrying a clipboard around and all of a sudden knows like MQTT. She knows all sorts of manufacturing metrics. She knows a lot of stuff. A lot of these people are incredibly technical, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are getting, and I just saw the automation is great, but is it eliminating some jobs? There are definitely people who are going to lose their jobs, which is why it's so important to learn these concepts. Because while automation is definitely removing some jobs, the ability to keep up with it is still going to be there. You've got factories that are still going to be trying to automate 5-10 years from now. So as long as you dive into this, you're going to keep a job because it is very, very, very in demand. Controls engineers are unbelievably in demand right now.
Wow, that's good to know. I mean, it's kind of like when cloud came into play, and those people who are racking and stacking servers in a data center, like you knew that their time would come.
Yep, so, absolutely, and it's kind of the same. And those skills are pretty translatable to the cloud. And a lot of the people who are racking and stacking servers turn into the best cloud engineers because they know the nuts and bolts. They know how to fix things that a lot of people don't think about because they're just clicking through a GUI. But they dive in, and that's kind of the same with the controls industry. You get people who come straight in, they know programming, and they say, you know what, I can go and program this PLC. It's just ladder logic. It's easy, no problem. But they have no idea how the machine itself works. So they end up running it too fast. They end up breaking lines. They end up, causing explosions or whatever. Yeah, you can do a lot of damage if you don't know what you're doing. So the people who could be automated out of their jobs are actually in a perfect position to take control of this and get ahead of it and do much better and move up faster than a lot of the more technical people.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where I was moving into cloud, and people, actually, I had one person tell me, they're like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because cloud is bad."
Yeah. Whoops.
I was like, "Yeah, I'll take that chance."
Yeah. Good chance.
So Fred had a question. Basics you need to know when you start learning AWS, Google, Xerox. I'm not sure, but
I don't know. Printers, scanners. Oracle is definitely somebody, but fundamentals, networking, Linux. If you're going Windows, you need to understand what's going on. And I've found that one of the best ways to really understand and get into the nitty gritty of cloud. This isn't as soft of an intro as you might think. It's good to take an intro to cloud course potentially first, but building your own cloud can really prove to be amazing. Software such as Proxmox, it is a free, like VMware type substitute. If you were to launch something like that, you can then launch storage engines, you can launch databases, you can launch everything that you need on your own stack, and you can get a feel for how things talk to each other. So that's one way to do it. But as far as literally what do you need to know for cloud, Linux and networking, need to have those two things. Learn Linux networking first, period. Agreed. End of story. I would learn a scripting language, preferably at least two. That would be Bash and Python preferably, but Bash, Python, JavaScript, all of those are good. Knowing how to build a website is also really important, and it doesn't need to be crazy.
WordPress.
WordPress is fine. Just an HTML website and understanding how Nginx serves an HTML website is huge, because that will help you understand what goes on a little bit behind the scenes through all the abstractions that AWS has. So learning that type of stuff, I would say, are really, really the big ones. But hosting something on your own computer and managing the networking, stuff like that, is a really nice start, because it keeps you in a safe environment where you're not going to end up racking up a bajillion-dollar cloud costing fee, for sure. So those are probably some of the big ones I would say to hit on.
Even buying like 2 or 3 Raspberry Pis and just like hooking them up together on its own little network with the little switch, and then you can have each of them talk to each other. That's I find that's that's well worthwhile.
Absolutely. And they're so cheap now. I didn't have that when I was learning, Raspberry Pi was basically, I don't remember when they came out, but a Raspberry Pi was pretty much a calculator at the time and not
Yeah.
much more.
Yeah. And I mean, back then for me to actually do that kind of thing, I had to spend like $500 on a computer.
Should have seen my Cisco network. I had just a rack of switches and routers like that tall. It was like 100 pounds. It was just this giant pain in the A. But it was fun seeing the little lights blinking. It's like, all right, let's set up a new VLAN. All right, we're gonna trunk this, and then every now and then you would link a few switches together. And for those of you who know networking, disable spanning tree protocol, and then you get a nice little explosion of lights. It's really fun. By the way, if you ever do that in production, your day's ruined. Just go ahead and accept that.
Just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't seem like we have any more questions. So again, you can reach Derek on LinkedIn, Tech Study Slack. It seems like that's the new place where everyone hangs out. So
yep, everybody's there. Might as well just focus on those. If you need any other way to contact me, just go through that first, and then we'll deal with it.
Yeah, because those who are curious about automation when it comes to industrial automation, I mean, the best person to talk to.
Yep, I've got you covered, and then yeah.
It's always crapshoot when it comes to live streaming, because you don't know which way. Anyways,
absolutely.
So, anyways, thank you again, Derek, for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. This was a fantastic discussion. Knowing a little bit more about industrial automation kind of got me a little bit curious. I won't lie.
Yeah, let's dive in. Let's create something. I say we do a little side project, and I'll be happy to help you out. It'd be a blast. We'll get something going with the full Google IoT stack. I need to dive into it anyway, so that'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. Yep. Well, we'll talk about it offline.
Sounds great.
So,
which channel on Tech Study Slack? All of them. I'm not hard to find.
Yeah, he's not. So thank you again, Derek. Thank you all for everyone in the audience for tuning in for Bowtie Certified. And we will see you again next week at the same time.
Cheers, everyone.
Have a fantastic day, everybody. And keep on learning. Keep on striving.